Let's go over to the CBN News Desk for today's top headlines.
Gordon, the Islamic State terror group is celebrating Thursday's shooting in Tennessee that killed 4 U.S. Marines. ISIS followers hailed the act on Twitter. As George Thomas reports, the 24-year-old man who carried out the terrorist attack was inspired by Islam and longed for death.
The FBI is now trying to find out if Mohammed Yusuf Abdulaziz was inspired by ISIS propaganda online. His former high school wrestling coach is stunned at his actions.
He seemed kind of serious, but the more that I had him in class, he turned out to be just a cut-up. I mean, he was a joker all the time.
In the last year, ISIS has been urging followers in America to attack military facilities, police officers, and soldiers. The Kuwaiti-born man was reportedly motivated by Islam, writing in a blog that this life is short and bitter, and that Muslims should not let the opportunity to submit to Allah pass you by. In another post, Abdulaziz writes, "We ask Allah to make us follow their path and to know what role we need to play to establish Islam in the world."
What we are increasingly seeing are individuals who may be motivated by the ideology of a terrorist group, may be inspired by their social media campaigns, but are acting independent of those terrorist organizations.
The chaos erupted Thursday morning when the heavily armed 24-year-old college student went on a shooting rampage, first at this armed forces recruitment center.
He just pulled up, and next thing you know, he lifted up his arms like this with a big black gun, and it was one shot, and then it was just endless shots.
Minutes later, racing in a convertible to this Naval Reserve Center, where he shot and killed 4 Marines. For now, authorities are treating this as an act of domestic terror.
We understand as a community what it takes to heal. We're thankful for those who are home safely, and we will certainly give a prayer in all of our hearts for those who aren't.
Thursday night, residents of the city gathered in churches praying for peace.
Sometimes you don't have the words to say, you really don't, but just to be there for people and to let people know that we're here, we love you, and we're supporting you.
Abdulaziz was not on any U.S. terror list. While authorities believe he acted alone, the FBI is now combing through his computers and online activities to see if he has any foreign terror connections. Meanwhile, security is being stepped up across the country at military recruiting sites. George Thomas, CBN News.
Ohio, Georgia, and Indiana are launching investigations into Planned Parenthood to find out if organs from aborted fetuses have been sold. Several congressional committees are also investigating the nation's largest abortion provider. This week, a pro-life group released a video showing a Planned Parenthood official discussing monetary estimates for organs. Planned Parenthood says it does not sell fetal body parts. Well, thousands of babies in waiting currently sit in frozen storage in labs and clinics across America. In most cases, they're left over from fertility treatments. Well, for a California couple, the circumstances surrounding their frozen embryos are more complicated. Caitlin Burke reports.
In 2010, Nene Lee found out she had cancer. She and her then-husband, Stephen Findley, decided to freeze 5 embryos because the cancer treatment would make her infertile.
When a couple chooses to freeze their embryos, they're stored in cryotanks like these. There's no limit on how long an embryo can be frozen. Some have even been stored for more than 15 years and still resulted in successful pregnancies.
5 years after first freezing their embryos, however, Lee and Findley are in court fighting over what should be done with them. The couple divorced in April, and now he wants those embryos destroyed, and she wants to keep them.
She's very emotional. This is her last chance to have a biological child.
Findley says he doesn't want to have a child outside of marriage, and that Lee is bound by forms signed at the fertility clinic calling for the embryos to be destroyed in the event of a divorce. Lee's attorney is arguing that she has a constitutional right to procreate, and that the forms were not a binding contract.
They checked off the boxes. They were done. They were newlyweds. They had no idea. They weren't even thinking about divorce at that point in time.
The ruling in this case could set a national precedent. In previous cases, the party opposed to keeping the embryos has won. But there have been exceptions for women like Lee, who have had cancer and are now infertile. If Lee loses her battle in court, there is another option for the embryos. Organizations like Nightlight Christian Adoption Agency have programs that allow couples to adopt frozen embryos that would otherwise be destroyed.
We believe that life begins at conception, which means as soon as the embryo is created. And for many of these, or for these embryos, they've been placed in frozen storage, and that process of developing, being born, growing into adulthood has been halted and interrupted.
A ruling from the San Francisco County Superior Court judge is expected over the next several weeks. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
TLC is dropping 19 kids and counting. This comes after revelations the oldest Duggar son, Josh, molested 5 children, including 4 of his sisters when he was a teenager. TLC hopes to shift attention from the scandal with a documentary on child sex abuse. Jill and Jessa Duggar will be in it. The Duggars say they hope it brings hope to victims of child sex abuse.